Hi everybody, Liz and Annie back finally with some new videos and some new tutorials for everybody about how to get ready for remote teaching in the fall if you're doing it for the first time, or if you did it in the spring or over the summer and you're ready to kind of like revamp the way you were approaching things. So we thought we would start off by just kind of checking in. So hey Annie, haven't seen you in a while. Looking good.
Hello.
Did you do something different with your hair?
Oh, thanks. Yes, I did. Got a fresh new cut for
Oh,
fall and a little darker, you know.
I love
So
it.
we can step into fall.
We are definitely stepping into fall. I put some teal in my hair, which is nice and subtle on Zoom, which is like everything I do is kind of in reference to how's it going to work on Zoom? Is that going to look right on Zoom these days? So I think we are both ready for our fall classes. So we wanted to just kind of walk through some things that we've both learned or that our colleagues have pointed out to us in our conversations with people that are important to keep in mind just as you're kind of setting the stage for like what your Zoom classroom essentially is going to look like, because your students are going to see you. You're going to have your video on, even if you're sharing slides, they're going to see stuff like you can see one of my cats walking around in the background. Of course, you can decide to have a virtual background that hides everything. So if you don't want people to see what your home looks like or any chaos that might be going on behind you, we've talked about that a lot before. I have opted in all of my teaching, so I taught in the summer and I taught in the spring, I've opted to keep my background, my actual background, like this is actually my living room, but I've made little alterations like kind of across time to sort of curate the space behind me. And I did this without even realizing this is what I was doing. But for example, when we first started, there was nothing here. But I have these like great oil paintings that my grandfather did. So like right now this old woman is hanging here, but I have a few others. And so what I'll probably do quarter to quarter, just also to like break up the monotony of having the same background, is switch out the oil paintings. I have records stored here that are sometimes on camera. And sometimes like if I want to seem really cool, like I'll switch around which record is in the front so that my students can potentially see and be like, oh yeah, like if I ask them a question about like the kind of music they're into, if I happen to have a record that's like one of the bands that somebody mentions, I might like put it out there as like a callback to that. And I've acquired a couple of plants in the time that I've been sitting in this spot for the last 8 months. So I think those kind of brighten up the space behind me too. Annie, what are the kind of design choices or appearance related things that you're doing?
Right. So I kind of take the opposite approach of having a blank background so that it's not distracting at all. But it does prove some difficulties with using virtual backgrounds because the way it parses, the virtual background parses my background is that the couch is part of me and the background is not. And then sometimes I blend into the background. So I don't actually use virtual backgrounds, but I just leave this blank space. Though I have also acquired a houseplant right here, as many of us have during quarantine. So maybe I can angle it this way and have a little more excitement happening. But yes, I opt for the stark sort of background.
Yeah, and I think we don't have a third person in here to demonstrate, like the consistency of a virtual background. When we're actually teaching, especially if it's a lecture class, you're mostly like in screen sharing mode. You're probably showing a slide deck or probably showing something. So it's not always the case that students are going to get like a clear view of exactly what your living situation is, but any of these options is good. I would just say, and I think Annie agrees, I'm going to speak for you for a second, just be consistent, right? Like you don't need to change it up every time necessarily. It doesn't need to be like sometimes you're in front of a blank thing. Sometimes you're in this like more complex environment, sometimes using this virtual background or this one. So unless it's like relevant to the content of the course that you're teaching, just try to keep it consistent so that there's like something that kind of tethers each of your lectures together as you're going. Okay, other things that we learned that you might not think about, especially if it's the first time that you're kind of setting up your remote classroom via Zoom, is that you really do need to think about like the objects in your environment that might find their way on camera. So I mentioned like I've got cats, they run around in the background, they wait until I'm on a call to start making a lot of noise. I know a lot of people's pets seem to do that, like they get super jealous as soon as they know you're talking to someone through your computer, so they start to like howl or bark or like caterwaul or whatever. My cats will fight sometimes when they know they're being recorded. But there's other things too. So like this summer session was teaching a class that met for 3 hours at a time. So, and it's a lecture class. We didn't take a lot of breaks. So I'm just basically like sitting in this spot talking for 3 hours. So Of course, you're going to need like coffee. If you're me, you're going to need some water, something to drink. So I would always have like a variety of beverages, like arranged where I could get to them. But it took me like a few sessions of teaching to kind of realize that like some of my coffee mugs and like objects that I don't really think about that are in my home are more or less appropriate to have on camera, especially when I'm recording the lectures and sharing those with my students. They can access them later. So this mug is a great example. So this I frequently found myself drinking out of while I was teaching without kind of even clocking the fact that it has profanity on it. And Annie, I think you have a similarly questionable.
I do. I have my All Men Beware siren mug.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're trying to send a message or like be like the the cool hip prof who's like got subversive messaging on the objects that they own or whatever, that's your choice. That's like one thing, but like just a heads up, like don't do that inadvertently. Okay, and then the only other thing that we want to talk about today in this like appearance-oriented video is stuff that's new in the latest Zoom updates. So as usual, update your Zoom software. They have actually done a lot of really substantive changes and additions. So I'm going to go down here, show you all the different video settings that I now have. Okay, so I'm not going to show you all of them. I'm just going to show you one that I think is important to highlight, or two. Now, okay, so we've talked about this before. There's this touch up my appearance button that will like kind of auto filter a little bit, but now it has a sliding scale. So if I really wanted to, I could make my appearance much, does that look realistic?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Make myself look much more absurd than if I just set it to like, I think the default, if you have this turned on for the sliding scale, is like 15-20%. But then the other neat feature that they added with the video settings is this adjust for low light. So it's mine set to auto, but I can set it to manual and then it'll give me another sliding scale so I can increase that. So that doesn't look great, right? But I don't need that because I have a bunch of natural light right now. So I can turn that off. But Annie, you're kind of in lower light than I am. Would you bump up that auto thing and we'll see?
I did. There it is.
So that actually.
So I look more lit up.
You do. Like, and you don't like, so when I did it, I looked washed out, like overexposed. But when you do it, yeah, like I can see you more clearly. So I do think that's a nice feature to have.
That was the auto, and now I switched it to manual, so I can really blow it out if I want to.
Well,
but it kind of knew that this was about the right adjustment for low light.
Okay.
That's cool.
Awesome. So anything else in terms of like general appearance setting related issues as people are getting up and getting ready for their fall classes?
I don't think so. I think you covered it.
Okay. All right. We'll be back soon with more stuff. Good luck with this.